here.
No problem. I think this is a good way to talk about esports, because Smash is kind of unique in the sense that it's extremely difficult and time consuming, but even though it's not as rewarding as the other games, so it's I think it's a good game to go with.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so I guess I'll just start us off with a more general question with so why'd you start playing Melee competitively in the first place?
Well, I've always been just a competitive dude, period. Mm-hmm. So just when I was playing, before I got into it, competitively, I played with friends and family members, and, it was all for good fun, but I was always trying to win as well. So
yeah,
my high school had just a random tournament, and a teacher of mine actually had a younger brother in the competitive community. So he told him to come to the tournament, and it ended up being me versus him in grand finals. And, he knew advanced techniques like wave dashing and L canceling. And I'd never seen or heard of them before, so he ended up beating me, and, I was mind blown. I was like, how did you do all that stuff?
Yeah.
So then he just told me about the competitive community and the advanced techniques, and I was just kind of hooked after that.
Yeah. All right, cool. And so you started off playing Doc? Was that the first character you picked up?
Or Mario, technically.
Mario, all right. So I guess what led you first to Mario and Dr. Mario?
So I've always had this thing where in any game, I have characters that I pick, no matter what. If they're available in the game, they're just my go-to character, and I will always play them. Mm-hmm. And for the longest time, it was Mario. So if Mario was in, Mario Party, Mario Kart, all those games, I would pick him 100% of the time. And so Smash was no different when I first got into it. I started out as a Mario main, and then everyone told me Doc is a little better, and so I was like, I guess it's not technically changing characters if I go from Mario to Dr. Mario, so yeah. I just Doc and then stuck with him for, 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm. And then made the switch to Sheik and now Marth, or a bit of both Sheik and Marth. So, do you mind if I ask a little bit about why you made that change?
It was mainly because the metagame seemed like it was getting to a point where the characters weren't as effective. Doc is kind of slow and doesn't have much range. So I felt like, I was getting abused for that, where people were just playing really safe and patient and just kind of camping me out a little more. Mm-hmm. And, I tried for a while to deal with it, but I realized my best chance was to camp as well, which was not how I wanted to play the game. So yeah. I decided to pick up another character in Sheik, and I had already been playing her in teams a little bit, so it was an easy transition through singles.
All right, cool. And then, so how often are you playing Marth now in comparison to your Sheik? Because I don't know, I remember I was watching a video of Shine, and I saw you playing a lot of Marth there.
Yeah, I would say right now I'm at about maybe 65-35 in favor of Sheik, yeah. But I'm probably going to bring that a little closer to 50-50.
All right.
I'm really enjoying playing Marth, and he seems extremely strong in this meta, so I'd expect, you all should expect to see more of my Marth.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I guess you've already kind of touched on some of this stuff, like how you like to be competitive in video games, and you kind of chosen your characters a little bit based on maybe competitive edge, but also mixed with characters that you like to play. So maybe to kind of open up the idea and the topic of competition within Smash, what do you think are the aspects of competition within Smash that stick out to you the most? So if someone was to ask you about competition in Smash, what would be the first thing that came to your mind?
The first thing I would say is Probably pride. I feel like everyone in the Smash community is very prideful in their play.
Mm-hmm.
I think it stems from the fact that Melee is such a sandbox game where you can view the game any way you want and try to apply your thinking to the game, and some form of playstyle will be born out of that. And I feel that's what separates Smash from a lot of other games, where there's just a clear-cut way to be optimal and the best. And in Melee, I feel that there's so many different ways that you can play a lot of the characters that it makes everyone, think that I know how to play the game and you don't.
All right. So that's interesting. So pride, I mean, like, I guess along that idea. So how do I phrase this? Let's actually move to. Are there certain players that you think you struggle with for certain reasons? Is it related to pride in any way? Because I was actually talking, so I talked to SFAT a little bit about a week ago.
Yeah.
And he mentioned that one of the things and reasons why he struggles against people, I guess, is kind of linked to pride and like respect for people. So do you think that, would you agree with that to an extent? That maybe reasons why you might struggle against players has to do with pride, I guess?
I feel that a while back that used to be a big problem for me, where I just respected a player's skills so much that I would have a mental block when I played them.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just kind of defeat myself saying, they're just better than me, so I probably won't win.
Yeah.
And I would still try my hardest, but that's not going to help you overcome that hurdle. So I feel like I used to deal with that. Nowadays, maybe, at least for me, my problem player, I would say, is Leffen. And I think it stems from his style of, he's very baity in the sense where he makes it look like you can approach him and, attack him, but he's actually completely safe. Yeah. And I'm an aggressive player, so I feel like I run into his base a lot because I'm always trying to aggress and assert myself on my opponent.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I have that knowledge. I know that that's what he does, and so the solution would be to be a little more patient with my play, but I never do because I feel like I have too much pride. I feel like I can get him. I can run over there and I can hit him just a little cleaner, and so I feel like my pride blocks me there in the sense that I don't really want to adjust my game plan even when it's failing. I'd rather just try to use my game plan better.
All right. Okay, that's cool. I mean, so sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, so I guess that is actually one thing. The idea of patience is something that I feel like I've struggled with a lot too. I guess like when playing Smash, it's really easy to, at least for me, to go on autopilot and not think as much, and just kind of like go in. So I guess what I kind of wanted to ask you was, what kinds of things do you think like are like barriers to entry in becoming a better becoming a better Smash players? Because I think that like to me, patience is one example, and I was just wondering if you had any others that came to mind.
The biggest barrier to improving, in my opinion, is the fact that a lot of players just try to emulate what they see better players do.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember where I heard. I was watching some Melee video, but someone said you'll never be the best at emulating someone else. You can only be the best you. And I feel a lot of the players coming in nowadays, they have so many resources and so much information that they just try to regurgitate all of those things that they learn through videos and tutorials and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't even attempt to really apply their own view and their own spin on the game. They just try to do, X in, this situation that they've seen top players do a million times. And so Melee is so sandbox that you kind of need to have your own spin on the game where, if you're just doing the same things that every player's been exposed to all these years of playing, you're never really going to get past that ceiling. You'll just beat the other new people that aren't ready for those optimal decisions.
So do you think that just playing more and gaining experience is one of the ways to remedy that, of like not falling into formulaic ways you see other players play?
I would say yes, playing a lot is absolutely beneficial, but also theory crafting a lot, just kind of experimenting, just try to find new ways to apply things not just not just copy things but try to put your own kind of spin on it and hit opponents with things they won't expect.
Yeah,
I think that would really propel a lot of the newer players if they just had their own mix-ups that they create.
Okay. How often do you spend just theory crafting?
Back in the day, it used to be all the time. It was basically the only thing I think about or I thought about. But nowadays, I'll probably, whenever I'm kind of just daydreaming or whenever I'm driving or doing a low committal activity, then I kind of just imagine sets in my head, and I just imagine situations and mix-ups that I think would be interesting. Just I could mix in a down tilt here, or with Marth, trying to figure out early tipper kills or something like that. Yeah. And I'll just think about things that I feel like is lacking in my play, and then later on when I finally get to playing, I already come up with sort of a plan of things that I want to be doing while I'm practicing.
Do you spend time doing that theory crafting when you prep for sets?
No, because I feel like when I'm about to go into a set, it's all about what I already know and what I'm already capable of instead of, trying some super experimental things. So I feel when I'm going into a tournament set, I'm not trying to think of anything new. I'm just trying to, play as solid as I can based on all the tactics I already have under my belt.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess along the same lines, what are things you do to prepare yourself, before a match? Are there certain routines that you have going into a match that you may or may not want to disclose?
I mean, I don't think it sounds awful if I'll grab a beer just to calm the nerves. Just have one beer. But other than that, I kind of just try to find the setup so I can sit and play for a little bit, not too much because you don't want to. I don't like over stressing and being too zoned in because I don't want to put too much pressure on myself. But I grab some water, I relax for a little bit, and then maybe 20 minutes before my set, I'll sit down and practice for 15 minutes, and then take a 5-minute break before my set, and just kind of just get into the zone, kind of zen out, just kind of try to center myself is the best way I can put it.
All right. Okay. Are there certain things that you're thinking about before you play these sets? Is it just thinking about relaxing, or are there certain things that you focus on?
I was talking to SFAT, and one thing he told me that has been really beneficial is just to take a deep breath and try to really calm yourself because it gets pretty hot up there on stage. Your heart's beating, the adrenaline's flowing, but that can that can make you autopilot easily, and you'll just start pressing buttons, going as fast as you can or something. So that's why I try to center myself before I even get on stage, and then once I'm there, I really try to keep that composure and not get overexcited or even underexcited either. Just try to get to a good neutral state. But I'd say I also think about one thing I like to call it kind of just keeping some tricks in the bag, where I might know some very, very unique things for a matchup. Something that could potentially, just a situation where there's a mix-up and it can net me an early kill or something. So one thing I think I try to make sure I'm mentally prepared to use any one of those, and also think about when I feel I should use them in a set.
All right. Okay. Cool. I guess, yeah. So I think this is a good point. Like, to keep harping on the idea of like a mindset or mentality of Smash, and I guess we've kind of hit on it in terms of what you're thinking about before a game, and you start to go into like when you're thinking about tricks or certain strategies, what you're thinking about during a game. So I guess while you're actually playing, are there certain like things that you try to focus on? Are there certain emotions that you're feeling or strategies you use once you're actually playing?
So I try not to actually get too emotional during sets nowadays. Obviously, it overflows. You try to hold it back, but it starts coming out.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm an emotional player in the sense that I kind of feel the game instead of, I don't know the data of the game. I just kind of feel when I play. So I try not to let any one emotion overtake me, because then I feel like my play will just spiral downhill. If I'm too excited, then I'll just be, running at my opponent, not thinking about approaching. If I'm getting frustrated, then I'll just not be able to execute and things like that. Yeah. So I try to just have all of my collective emotions about the same level, so that I can, use what they each bring to the table. Excitement makes my approaches, my aggression better, my zoning and things like that. And so I try not to get overly emotional when I play, because I feel like that'll just distract me.
All right. So don't get too over emotional, but like as you're feeling the game, it's okay to get a little excited once you have an opening or something, or to calm down when like you lose a stock or other things like that. All right.
Yeah. So when you get a juicy knockdown, that's the time where you can let your okay, it's time to kill him. You can let that emotion take over a little bit, and then when you're off stage recovering, that's when you need to reel it back in and really kind of think about how am I going to get back to the stage and blah blah blah. So
yeah.
All
right. And I know you mentioned the crowd earlier, so I guess like while you're playing, like personally, how does the crowd affect you? More nervous, less nervous, anything else?
I actually feel like nowadays the crowd makes me a little more nervous, which is weird, because it never used to affect me back in the day, but it does now. That's why I really appreciate the headphones, because we're playing, but the crowd is also very invested in the set most of the time. Everyone's screaming, they got a favorite.
Yeah.
So it can be easy to get distracted by the crowd. If you're winning a match or a set, and the crowd wants you to start going nuts, you might just kind of overstep and overextend and kind of that. Or if you're losing and everyone's kind of ragging on you because you're getting bodied, it's very easy to just start getting really upset and even more frustrated, because you hear all these people talking about how poorly you're playing.
Yeah.
So I really try to block the crowd out, and that's why I've played with music for a long time, just because I want to kind of be in my own space when I play, because that brings out the best in me.
Yeah.
So for me, the crowd can distract me, but I take steps to minimize that.
Mm-hmm. Do you practice with music on?
I do. Okay. I play whenever I'm playing at home. I'm always just listening to my own tunes. I have playlists that I have ready just to chill and play.
So do you think like listening to that music while you're playing a tournament set can like bring you, I guess, into a more calm mindset by playing like similar music maybe?
Absolutely, but at the same time, there's a lot of sound cues that are very useful in Melee.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a balance where you don't want to be blasting music in your ears.
Yeah.
I kind of use it more as background noise, just to kind of make me feel like I'm at home, just another day in the lab, and so that's kind of when I play my best.
All right.
But you definitely don't want to overdo it because you need the game sounds. So not all players do, but I benefit from the game sounds.
Okay. Yeah. So I know you mentioned also when we were talking about this stuff that your ability to feel your way through the game is one of your strengths. So I guess, are there any other things that you think are maybe thinking more mentally that is a strength for you in Smash, or certain things that stick out that are a weakness for you in your mental game in Smash that you're trying to improve on?
I would say my mental game weakness, probably my punish game, in the sense that I feel like I'm thinking through my punish game, but when I'm thinking about how to punish someone, my timing suffers, and I'm not really able to, execute my punish as cleanly as I should. When I'm not thinking about my punish and I just try to do things, then my timing's better, but the moves that I select aren't optimal. They don't net me the biggest punish because I'm not thinking hard enough about how to punish them. So I'm still trying to find that balance between thinking about what I'm doing and just feeling my way through the game as well.
All right. Okay, that's cool. And I guess so then, one thing we've talked about, like what you're thinking about, I guess, during punishes and during certain sequences during a match. So do you think that the way that you're thinking about Melee and then your mentality is changing, like from game to game, like throughout a set? Do you think you're focusing on different things? Let's say on the first game versus on like game 5.
Absolutely, yeah. As the set goes on, I've kind of always been a more adaptable player in the sense that I feel I don't generally 3-0 people. I kind of take some time to learn my opponent, and so I feel like as the set goes on, I get a little more used to how my opponent is playing. So I can't exactly elaborate on how I do it. It's just something that I kind of start to understand how my opponent likes to approach, how they like to defend themselves, and recover, edge guard, all those things. So I feel like I'm very adept at realizing what my opponent wants and adjusting my game plan to deal with that.
Yeah. All right. And then I guess in these long sets that you might be playing, is there certain ways that you like to think about the game when you're losing versus when you're winning?
Yeah, but that's a weakness of mine, and so I feel when I'm winning, it's really easy to really kind of just hit the nail on the head and just take the set home. But when I'm losing, sometimes it's hard for me to really figure out why I'm losing. So I feel like if I start ahead in the set, I end up taking it, and if I start behind, I feel I end up, losing it in the end. But I'm still working on trying to figure out how to adjust my plan when I'm, getting washed or something.
Gotcha. All right. I mean, like, I guess what are certain... You don't have to have an idea now, but I guess to think about it, like, what are certain things you think players do or could do to help them when they are, like, losing? Things to think about.
I would say kind of just maybe isolating the biggest problem. If it's, you're losing neutral the whole time, or when they hit you, they just punish you to death.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that's kind of the main thing, is just trying to isolate the biggest reason why you're being outclassed. It's like there has to be some overarching reason other than they're just better than you. That happens sometimes.
Yeah, that does happen too.
Better than you.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's your recoveries are bad, or your neutral game, your approaches.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's just so many different things it could be that it's hard to really
sure.
To pin down, to tell someone how to pin down
Mm-hmm.
what the problem is.
And I guess another thing you just got me thinking about was, I mean, you mentioned like sometimes the players is better than you, so I don't know, like, do you approach the game a little bit differently when you are playing like different ranked play? Like you're playing a player that's like top 50 versus playing a player that is top 5. Like, in what ways do you think your mindset is different going into those? Maybe beyond just the idea of they're better than me, I need to play better, or something like that.
I want to say the biggest difference between a top 50 and a top 5 player is, against the top 5 players, one mistake will generally, end up with you dead.
Yeah.
They're going to take that stock or that mistake. They're going to get one punish and then propel that initial interaction into the stock most of the time. So I would say, against the lower level players, you can make a mistake and, you might get punished, but generally it's not going to be that hard, and you can recover from it most of the time.
Yeah. All right. So maybe like some mental toughness and being prepared for those kinds of things going into it.
Yeah. You need much more mental composure and when you're fighting a top 5 player, and you also just have to kind of really, really pick your spots, and you don't have as much freedom to, try things, because if you try something and it goes wrong, it goes extremely wrong, extremely quickly.
All right.
So that would be the biggest difference that I see.
All right. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess to round out, I've been just like rapid fire asking you as many questions I could think of, about like mentality. But one last thing I wanted to focus on was teams. So I know you play a lot of teams, and I just wanted to ask, I guess we can start thinking about it generally and see where it leads us. How do you, let's say, how do you prepare for a teams match, or how are you thinking about a teams match going into it differently than how you would do so for a singles match?
So teams, obviously, you're working with someone else as well as you're fighting 2 people. Mm-hmm. So one thing I always try to do now with my teammate S2J, Johnny Kim, we kind of talk about situations and our general game plan, because, teams is pretty crazy because of Melee so fast paced. So when there's 4 people on the screen, a lot's happening. But we'll always discuss kind of generic situations and modify that during the set. So, for instance, if we're playing against, team UGS or Team Alliance, Android and and Armada.
Yeah.
One thing we talk about is Johnny shouldn't get in the middle of them ever because he's the fast faller. If he's in between them, one shield poke down smash and they're gonna combo him to 80 or something.
Yeah.
So before we enter the set, we'll just discuss little things like that and situations we want to avoid and situations we want to push for as a team.
Mm-hmm.
So we do that pretty much before we play any team set.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, so I guess that's something I should have definitely thought about. It's definitely different, like you said, when you're playing a teams match because you can dissect it with someone else mid set, which is definitely an advantage. So I guess are there other things that you try to always keep in your mind when you're playing, as you're playing a teams match that isn't something you would necessarily be thinking about when you're playing singles? I guess beyond just maybe obvious things that you're playing against two players and you have a teammate.
Yeah, I would say I'm always thinking about how I can enable my teammate to do a little more.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing is you kind of, in doubles, you should give up the I for the team.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's situations where I might be able to start comboing someone and my teammate's getting, comboed. And then I have to think, do I want to go help him or finish my combo and things like that. So I would say I'm always aware of how I can bring out the best in my teammate and not just, kind of play. I always want to try to play on my teammate's strengths. And so I know my own strengths, but I try to use those to bring out as much in my teammate as I can instead of, trying to shine and maybe carry the team or anything like that, be the ace. So I'm always just trying to make sure that my teammate is comfortable and can, play their best. Yeah. So I would consider myself I'm an aggressive support teams player.
All right, yeah. So do you think playing on teams is more or less stressful than playing singles? Yeah.
I actually have a crazy opinion on this. I think that teams is both harder and more fun, but I think singles is more stressful in the sense that it just kind of makes you feel a little more stressed out than doubles does, just because you have a teammate there, so you're not just kind of carrying the weight of the set or match all on your own.
Yeah.
But I mean, with that said, if you're just dropping the ball left and right, it also feels awful to let your teammate down and lose it. But overall, I think teams is more difficult. It's just the meta is so far behind that a lot of people still don't even really understand teams much at all. So singles is just more developed, so it looks harder.
Yeah.
But I think as teams get better, it'll become more difficult than singles. That's my hope anyway.
Gotcha. All right. Oh, that's great. One thing that I wanted to ask about that you've mentioned now, both in singles and doubles, is acceptance of hard punishes that people are going to put on you. Like you mentioning making sure that XQJ doesn't get in the middle of Armada and Android because one little mistake is going to be 80% or death or something. Or you're playing a top 5 player, you try out something a little bit new and you die for it or something. And I guess one thing that I've always, thought about a little bit sometimes when I'm playing Melee, when I get really annoyed, how punishing Melee is. Do you ever get discouraged by that, or do you think you get kind of excited by it, or both?
I would say I get a little discouraged when I get punished by Shine. That's probably the only one that discourages me. But I'd say that I think it's a positive in the sense that I know how difficult it is to punish that hard.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of respect whenever I get punished that much. Just makes me respect my opponent more in the set.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I was, I never really feel cheated when I'm punished that heavily, except for getting wobbled maybe. But
All right,
I more feel that this guy's good. I need to be careful just because his punish game is extremely respectable.
Yeah.
So I'm never in a place where I feel punish game is broken or unfair. So overall, I love the melee system, and it's interactive punish game, because even if they're punishing you super heavy every time, you're making decisions that's contributing to their ability to punish you. So even though sometimes you're screwed, you still get to make some decisions and try to avoid that situation before it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I mean, I found it interesting that you just brought up the idea of like respecting someone's punish game, because I know you mentioned earlier at the beginning that like respect was something that hindered you when you were newer when playing against players. So I guess like the acceptance or respect for other people might help you just in playing and maturing in Melee, I guess. All right.
Yeah, I think I started out where I guess it wasn't respect that was holding me back before. It was more idolization, where I just kind of viewed some opponents as beyond me.
Yeah.
So that's 1 second, my door.
That's no problem. Take it down.
I'm actually gonna play. Oh shit! Shit is broken. I'm finishing an interview. It should be like 10 minutes. I was actually setting up a practice session tonight too.
Oh, sorry. I mean,
no, you're fine.
Okay, no problem. I thought that was really interesting. That you just mentioned, like idolization is something that you need to maybe overcome to reach the level of certain players. Like, I guess, like, how did you think about that? How did you overcome that idolization? Like, what are certain things you thought about going into those games against players that you thought you could never beat?
It was actually a smash fest, funny enough. I used to view Armada as just kind of strictly superior than me at the game, but a couple, maybe like 2.5 years ago, I think it was Genesis 3, he stayed with SFAT, and I went over and we played a ton. And, I was taking games. We were going, maybe 60-40 his favor, when the year prior to that, it was probably 80-20 his favor. So I just saw tangible results from my practice that show, I can keep up with him. It's difficult, he can be on his B game and I still have to be on my A game, but if I'm on my A game and he's on his A game, it's still possible, it's not completely out of the question for me to be able to take a games or even a set from him.
Yeah, not getting discouraged. I guess one other thing that I wanted to ask is, what do you think is like the most unique thing about Melee? What sticks out to you in terms of what's really unique about the game that makes it why you love it so much?
That's a super easy question for me to answer.
Right.
It's always the same since I started playing. And I will say it's the level of interaction that you have with your opponent. Because in, almost every other game, once you're like getting hit or something, you're like fighting games, you're kind of screwed, You're in stun and you have no inputs to do whatsoever. You just have to watch your opponent beat up on you.
Yeah.
In Melee, there's DI, so every time you get hit, you get to choose, fly a little more in this direction, that direction, or whatever. So I love Melee just because you interact with your opponent so much and you can't get that anywhere else in any other fighting game.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Do you have time for another couple questions, or do I need to cut this soon?
What, like 5? 5. Okay, yeah. Couple more minutes, yeah.
Okay, awesome. One last thing that I wanted to ask, along this, like, because we've been talking a lot about Melee, and what I just asked about was like what separates it from other games. But I was just wondering, are there any, like, do you play any sports right now, or have you played any sports in the past?
I played soccer when I was really young, like elementary, junior high. I don't play sports, but I exercise.
Okay. I was just wondering. Yeah, I was just wondering if it ever came to mind that you felt there were parallels between like sports you played and Melee, maybe, and how you approached them, how you thought about them, or if like exercising in certain ways helped your like Melee, or the other way around.
Well, I feel that exercising brings mental clarity. So when I'm exercising a lot, I just feel like my thinking is clearer. And if ping pong counts as a sport in your mind, some people are ridiculous about that. But I think adapting in ping pong it has parallels to adapting in Melee. You kind of learn how your opponent likes to position, what hands, like what stroke they're strong or weak with, and the kind of spin they like to put on the ball.
Yeah.
So you have to adapt to all those kind of little things, just like you have to adapt to a bunch of little things in Melee as well.
All right. Okay, cool, man. All right. I guess that's about all I got. I know you got to go. So thank you so much for doing the interview. Do you have any like last minute questions for me about the article or anything?
No, but if you're going to post video, I will give a shout out to the IMT squad, to the Melee community, and, all my NorCal homies. Not Patrick. But thank you, Matt.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And, I'll keep